Hey guys, J-Dub here. So a new project came in the shop today and I decided that I'm gonna share this one with you guys for a couple of reasons. First reason is it's not gonna be the easiest fix. And the second reason is I feel like quite a few of you guys probably have the same thing going on with your hot rods and you may just be too intimidated to fix it. Now, what I am talking about is, well, it's pretty obvious. This giant hole right here in the roof of this nice little Mustang. Now, I can tell you already just by looking at it, there's gonna be a lot of distortion to deal with. And that's the main reason why I figure I might as well walk you guys through the steps. Now, I know this will never be an A job. And what I mean by an A job is an A quality job would be going around the perimeter, knocking out all the spot welds and changing the whole roof skin. But that is very costly, takes a lot more time, and this customer doesn't want to spend that kind of money. So I am going to just build a blank and put it in the hole. Oh, it sounds so easy, but it's not. So we're gonna start by cutting our blank, our piece of sheet metal that's gonna fit inside this hole, tack weld it in, go around the perimeter, TIG weld it all, and then I feel like we're gonna be battling distortion. But I did tell them that there's obviously gonna be a little bit of filler having to go on the roof because you will never get it dead flat. Like, you probably could, I guess, if you spent hours and hours and hours at it. But then you might as well just change the whole roof skin. So let's get started at this. Not looking that forward to it. I have done one or two in the past, and you're always chasing the distortion. The big key to this is trying to keep the heat down, trying to keep control of your distortion, and just not getting too ahead of yourself. Just take your time. So let's get started. I'm gonna start by getting my piece of sheet metal, putting a little crown in it with the English wheel, laying it out, cutting it, fitting it, tacking it, and then I'm gonna start welding it. And as I'm welding it, I am going to be watching for the distortion. Your main reason why you get any distortion is because the shrinkage. You know, anytime you weld anything, it shrinks, and that's what's gonna cause the distortion. So I'm going to weld it with TIG, and I'm gonna put a dolly underneath, and I'm gonna hammer every bit of this weld. As it's shrinking, I'm gonna try to stretch it back out to keep the distortion down to a minimum. And then in the end, I'll try to take care of all the oil canning, which I already know is gonna be there. One of the key things to doing something like this is knowing what's gonna happen and being on top of it. I don't wanna go and weld this whole panel and just letting it distort and warp more and more and more until the end and then deal with it. I want to weld a little bit, and as it's cooling, start taking the distortion out, hammering the welds back out, kind of knocking things around. And in the end, it will need a little bit of filler on the roof. That is just what's going to happen. I did mention that the roof skin was going to be your best fix, and he opted to go this route. So let's get into it. Let's see how it turns out, and I'll let you guys be the judge if I did a good job or not. So let's go. So I've got my piece cut out. I've ran it through the wheel a couple of times, and you can see that, you know, we've got some crown going on. You know, the big thing is trying to figure out how much you're gonna need. If you have too little, well, obviously it's gonna sit a little flat. My thoughts behind this bit is make it a little bit too much, a little too much crown, because I know when I weld all the way around the perimeter, it's gonna pull and it's gonna flatten down a little bit. So I feel like I'm kinda right where I wanna be, but I won't know until it's too late and I'm done. But I think I should be able to deal with that too. So let's get this thing in the hole and start welding it in. Now that I've got our piece tacked in there, I'm pretty happy with the way everything is fitting so far. But things can get ugly in a hurry. I've got to start welding the perimeter out, and this is where the fun begins. I've got to stay on top of all this distortion. Now that I finished off all the welding, as you can see, it turned out pretty good. There's definitely a few highs and lows kind of in this area here that I'm gonna have to work with, kind of drops and raises here. This became quite a bit shorter, so it's kind of squeezing all this material. So I've got to go along and kind of start hammering this weld to try to stretch it out the best I can. And you can see that I used an older flapper and only ground down the weld. I don't want to be grinding this or this until the very end when I polish this weld out. So I've done a real nice job, as you can see, staying right on top of my weld, bringing her down as close as I felt comfortable to these two surfaces without digging in. Sheet metal's pretty thin. You don't want to dig down in there or you'll end up grinding right through. Now that I've got this step done, the real work begins. I mentioned before that I was going to TIG weld this, and I thought to myself that more of you guys probably have MIG welders, so I thought I would MIG weld it in. This is the first time I MIG welded instead of TIGged one of these roof panels in, and it actually turned out pretty good. I feel like I'd be dealing with a little bit more distortion if I would have TIGged it in, but the weld would be a lot softer. See, this weld here is a lot harder because it's MIG welded in, it's blasted in a lot faster when the surface is cold and it cools down faster, leaving the weld a little bit harder. So with a little bit of hammer and dolly work, I should have this thing straightened right out in no time. Now that I've got most of the distortion knocked out of the roof, I want to show you guys one more thing. I've got an old used flapper and a brand new flapper, and I want to show you how I use them. You can see over here where I haven't finished polishing the weld away, I'm as close as possible without touching these other surfaces with the old flapper. This is a little bit harder, a little bit easier to control, and I just want to bring this down as close as I can without touching these two base metals. Once I get to that point, that's when I swap over to 40 grit, brand new flapper, and I start just polishing it away. The moment the lines on each side of the weld disappear, I stop. That is it. That's as far as I want to go. From there, a quick orbital, and it's ready for primer. Just wanted to share that one other tip with you guys. Time to carry on. Okay, now that I've got the last little bit of distortion knocked out of the roof, I think it turned out pretty good. I'm going to show you guys one more thing, and then we're going to do the last step, which will be taking an orbital and scuffing all this up for a coat of primer. Now, notice my line where I've been grinding. I'm not over here and I'm not over here. I got no business being there. I'm right on the weld. I don't want to thin this up and I don't want to mess this up. It's paying attention, even right down to the direction that your grinder is spinning. You know, if your sparks are going off that way, you're going to be taking off the edge of the weld on this side. If your sparks are going that way, you're going to be taking off the edge that's on this side. So you got to kind of read the weld, what kind of material you have left that you want to take down, and spin your grinder the right way. When you really want to improve on your skills, it comes down to the smallest little details. Let's orbital this thing out and we're done. Now that the roof panel is done on this old Mustang, I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of it. It turned out excellent. I think that changing at the last minute from TIG to MIG on this job definitely helped me out. I got a lot less warpage than I did the last time I TIGged one of these in. This is a game of patience right here. The flatter the panel, the more distortion you're gonna deal with. So like this, the only thing I could think that potentially could be harder as far as sheet metal goes is maybe like right across a door skin. That's a pretty tough one too. But we took it slow. I can never give this A rating. It's always gonna be a B to me because, well, I didn't change the full roof skin. That would have been the best job that I could have done here. But as far as patches in an old sunroof hole, I'm gonna give this one a B+. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Rate my latest job. Let me know. Did I do a good one, or was there some steps that I could have added into my system? Maybe different tools to make it even better? Leave a comment. Like always, guys and gals, be safe out there.